TRRC witness accuses the military for his poor state of life. United Democratic Party UDP calls for joint efforts in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. World Health Organizations call for new funding to help Africa to fight coronavirus. This and more coming on The World Today. Hello, this is iAfrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin, and many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. President Adama Barrow will address the nation on the country's preparedness in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, according to the Office of the President. It will be his first comment on the global disaster since its outbreak in December 2019. The government of the Gambia faces criticism for seemingly taking matters lightly on its response to the outbreak, especially when more than 20 cases are confirmed in neighboring Senegal. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health has just issued a public statement that the coronavirus tests conducted on the 2 people suspected Indonesians have proven negative. And of course, from that development on the issue of coronavirus, next we head to South Africa, where the South African government has declared a national state of disaster over the global health pandemic as number of people who contract the virus continue to double virtually every day. The country's authorities say they are trying to contain the virus, requiring the participation of everyone, including communities. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Since the first reported positive case, the infection rate has doubled every second day, and this prompted the government to step in. The health minister, who's been driving the fight since the beginning, is now focused on containing the virus.
What we want to do is to contain it such that it doesn't give an explosion that overwhelms the health services. That is what this is all about, and therefore community mobilization and getting community to participate is important.
The Finance Ministry is responsible for finding the funding to tackle and control the pandemic in South Africa. There's a structural arrangement in place between the Departments of Finance and Health to communicate and assist the national and regional departments.
There are funds available within the National Disaster Fund, which will be immediately available. I don't want to mention amounts in case prices begin to change, but funds have been set aside. That's the first thing. Secondly, as the situation develops, we will need to set aside further funding. That means we'll have to reduce programs throughout the government system.
Part of the announcement by President Ramaphosa was that the visas for people traveling from high-risk countries were immediately cancelled. The reality is that the South African education system hosts several thousand foreign students who all have current visas.
So I don't think the issue of visas for people who are already studying be affected in any way, except if the person wants to go home, depending on which country they are going to. Then the normal measures which you have mentioned here will start kicking in.
The declaration of a state of disaster requires legislative changes. It's appeared in the country's government gazette. To give force to the new powers, new regulations are required by law. Minister Mboweni made the point about keeping the economy going, and this was reinforced by the announcement that the mining, manufacturing and retail sectors would remain open for business, with stricter hygiene measures in place. It was a 3-hour-long marathon period in which some 17 ministers were on hand to answer all the questions that the media posed. But it is day one of this national command centre. We'll have to see how the government coordinates everything.
From the report on the impact of the coronavirus in South Africa, we come back home and report on the hearings of the ongoing TRRC. In continuation of his testimony before the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, Abdoulaye Bari told the TRC that he was a van driver when he got knocked down by a military car that led to his ailing condition. He said his health deteriorated, leading him to the street begging in order to provide for his family and his medical expenses. Bari told the commission on Monday that he had made all effort to seek justice but to no avail. Let's have more details of that in this report.
A 59-year-old driver said he had suffered gruesome injuries on his leg and left hip from an accident when his car was knocked by another car that was being driven by a military official around Banjulinding. Testifying before the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission TRRC on Tuesday, Abdoulaye Bari said he could not confirm who exactly was driving the car that knocked him, but he saw some military men who tried to help him and removed him from his car. He said it was another driver coming from Brikama who tried to help him and took him to Banjulinding Health Center, and he was later referred to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital in Banjul.
Well, my wife, I gave her the money. She said she will not catch that money.
In the ambulance on site, ambulance à la fuel.
They said they need an ambulance, but the ambulance had no.
No the benga or the also the fuel.
That's the time when my wife took out and bought fuel for the ambulance.
May I RPTH? Benabila kono hari mimi andahande kar honto mi woni dal.
That's the time I was taken to the Royal Victoria Hospital, but at that time I was not aware of anything. I didn't even know where I was.
And that's because you were unconscious, is that correct?
Hari mi andal hande ka honno moni be pengelan ko be pengelan don be wadi drip e hodan dum mi anda hande kadi konto mon dal ha me hewti ka laptani min balde tati si mi andi honto moni dal.
They fixed drips for me. They gave me an injection and took me to the hospital. In fact, I spent 3 days in the hospital there without being conscious. It was after 3 days I became conscious of my environment.
Mr. Bari said from the accident, he spent some days before he gained consciousness when he came to know the person that knocked his car.
His name, we know him as Dambele.
Dambele, mi anda Kuridon.
His name, but we usually call him Dambele.
Do you know from what police station he came from?
Police station Banjulundin police station.
He works at that time at the Banjulundin police station.
According to him, life changed after the accident, making him a beggar, and has been going from one place to another in search of justice and help for his medication. He said lawyer Ida Drame took his statement and sent it to the office of the president through the then Secretary General Ali Ngom, but he never received a feedback. It was later when a friend advised him to lodge his complaint to the African Center for Democracy and Human Rights Studies and met Anna Foster, who also took his statement but did not receive any result from them. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Aissatou Tamba.
From the report there by Aissatou Tamba on the ongoing hearings at the TRRC, we will now take a break and come back shortly with the remaining of the story. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
si ñëw bi nga ñëw seet si suma tabax gi kontaan naa ci trop.
man maa gën a kontaan ñooy fekk sa tabax bi toll fii waaye nag man kontaanuma ci sama kër gi man.
lu xew.
ndax umpale wu loon ñoo bokkoon nekk Europe.
dëgg la
jamono yu ñu nekkee foofu yëpp man ak yow maa ngi am benn waay maa ngi ko yónnee xaalis bu bari pour mu sampal ma suma kër. te ba léegi tabax bi. te yow nga waxoon ma ne ma bi nga starté samp yàggul léegi nga toll fii foo jaar.
li waral loolu nag mooy dama ànd ak waa Baluwo.
kon su ma la déggee Baluwo dañuy yëngu ci samp kër tamit.
ni ngay def nag yomb na da ngay log on to www.baluwo.com mun ngaa jënd ci ñoom ciment suuf banta weñ ba ci daaj yi nga xam ne di nga ko soxla lépp lu jëm ci wàllu samp rek mun nga koo am ci lu yomb ak Baluwo daal yaay dugal sa xaalis fi nga ko bugga amee ko ci ni nga ko buggee.
Welcome back. You are watching The World Today on Africa TV, and now to the rest of the stories. The leader of the United Democratic Party, UDP, has pledged his party's support to the ongoing efforts to prevent the entry of coronavirus in the country. Speaking at a press conference on Tuesday, Ousainou Darboe enjoined Gambians to pay attention to all medical advices in order to keep the pace. He urged the government to be more vigilant and put in place adequate measures to deal with the pandemic. Aminata Job has more details in this report.
Ousainou Darboe, leader of the United Democratic Party, has donated ideas to stimulate government's efforts in the prevention of coronavirus that is currently spreading across the world. The COVID-19 is yet to be confirmed in the Gambia, but confirmation of 20 cases in neighboring Senegal puts the Gambia at high risk of this. Speaking at a press conference on Tuesday, lawyer Ousainou Darboe said the declaration of the outbreak as a global pandemic by the World Health Organization calls for proactive strategies. He calls on the government to set up a national emergency response team consisting of government and non-governmental organizations and the public health partners to assess the level of preparedness in dealing with the outbreak.
The UD encouraged the government to implement policies and measures to adequately prepare for the economic consequences of the pandemic. The economic fallout for the Gambia is likely to be severe and long-lasting due to our high debt burden and heavy dependence on foreign imports. Since the Gambia relies heavily on imported foods and other goods, the UDP is concerned about a potential food shortage and increase in prices of other commodities.
He also outlined his plan to support the government in any intervention or measures to combat the pandemic.
United Democratic Party urges the media fraternity to partner with the government and civil society to ensure that education awareness on coronavirus reaches the masses. Members of the public are advised to heed the messages shared by the Minister of Health, WHO, and other health professionals on curbing the spread of the virus, such as proper hand washing with soap, avoiding close contact with sick individuals, and staying home and getting medical attention if not feeling well.
He advised the public to accept all measures shared by the Ministry of Health and WHO on the crusade. For iAfrica TV News, I am Aminata Job.
Well, from that report there by Aminata Job, next we talk on, of course, the COVID-19 matter, because the World Health Organization has launched a response funding need of $98 million to help the African to fight the coronavirus pandemic. A substantial amount has been already received from the request. This funding will allow WHO to support the continent to take firm position to address the outbreak that has already killed thousands of people. Let's have more of that in this report.
The World Health Organization's funding needs for the response stands at $98 million, of which $44 million have been received, leaving a funding gap of $54 million.
The overall budget for the organization is roughly around $600 million.
And our initial estimation for the African region alone is about 46 million. This is for WHO to provide support. But this do not include what countries need, for example, to rehabilitate health facilities. And also for us, this is to provide technical support and fill critical gap if something happens in a given country.
WHO's initial strategic preparedness and response plan called for a total resource requirement of $675 million, of which 61 million were for urgent preparedness and response activities for the period of February to April 2020.
The appeal that was launched at the beginning for the strategic response plan is to give us the means, and actually is the means for us to continue providing technical advice, but also making sure that, for example, we preposition the required equipment or supply.
Other partner organizations are also facing shortfalls that have led some to reduce or stop operations. There are growing fears that if the funds are not received, World Health Organization will be unable to sustain the response at the current scale.
From that report on matter of the coronavirus at the level of the WHO, we still, of course, report on it, but this time we come back home. Now, while the Gambia keeps fingers across rather than major preventive measures for the coronavirus, the effects of the disease has been projected to economic downturn. The Gambia's Minister for Finance has warned out that the country will lose the revenue close to $1 billion as a result of the coronavirus. Let's have more of that in this report.
The Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs has warned of economic downturn, estimated close to $1 billion as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mamboure Njie made this disclosure in address to the National Assembly on Tuesday, where he compared the loss in revenue to a one-month collection by the Gambia Revenue Authority in the year 2020. Finance Minister explained the situation on constraint in global supplies due to the factories shut down in China, Europe and the Middle East.
Honorable Speaker, our preliminary assessment of the impact of the COVID-19 suggests growth in 2020 will be 3% points lower than the initial estimate of 6.3% at the beginning of the year. In terms of revenue performance, it is estimated that close to $1 billion will be lost in revenue for the year, equivalent to 1 month of GRA revenue collection in 2020, if the virus remains uncontained in the next 3 months.
The loss of revenue, he said, is likely to widen budget deficit from 1.5% point of GDP of 2020 to 2.1% thanks to the coronavirus.
Concerning the overall fiscal balance, as close to a month of national revenue collection is projected to be lost and the budget deficit is expected to widen from 1.5 percentage point of GDP as per the approved 2020 budget to 2.1% of GDP with the impact of COVID-19.
Meanwhile, President Adama Barrow is expected to address the nation today on the country's preparedness on prevention and management of cases in the wake of the global disaster. Although the country is yet to count any case of the virus on its source, neighboring Senegal has recorded over 20 cases. This exerts pressure on the government on the need to become more proactive on the aspects of prevention. Former Director of Budget at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, Mamadou Savali, told the Good Morning Africa program on Africa TV that he expected the president to be the first to address the nation before any of his ministers.
But since you asked, I'll answer. You should not expect anything original. Copy and paste from what other presidents have been saying, nothing else.
Gambians have been on the social media demanding closure of border points and ban on public gathering in consideration of the prosperous nature of the country's entry points. Reporting for Africa News, I am Amadou Kante.
And from that report, we finally end this news bulletin with news on the locust invasion in some part of the continent. Now, locust invasion is posing serious threats to South Sudan food security, which the United Nations said are laying eggs in the eastern part of the country, which could hatch by April at the time when farmers are scheduled for cultivation. The invasion of the locusts has been posing serious problems to food security in many parts of the African continent, in which East African countries usually suffer the most. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Locusts are the latest issue to create Sudan's food security. The United Nations says the locusts are laying eggs in the eastern part of the country, which could hatch by April, a time when farmers are scheduled to begin cultivation. But the UN says a number of factors have contributed to the food insecurity.
Those problems are long-term in nature as well. We've had many years of conflict, many years of droughts. We've had all sorts of economic challenges that people across the country face.
Flooding late last year washed away crops, livestock and homes, destroying people's livelihoods. South Sudan's government says it is working to improve the situation.
The government is fully committed to the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement so as to afford our people a better life. We look forward to a peaceful environment that will continue to support the recovery of disrupted livelihoods and greater participation of the population in the upcoming 2020 agricultural season.
Government is being set up in South Sudan as a result of the 2018 peace agreement. The country has a new executive, but other officials such as members of parliament and state governors are yet to be appointed. The judiciary is also due to be restructured. Even if relative peace and security are being restored in the country, many South Sudanese people who are returning from refugee camps would still need to cultivate, plant and wait for harvest, which would need at least 3 to 6 months, during which time those farmers would have to depend on food aid. Another challenge in South Sudan is that infrastructure such as the road network is poor. Aid agencies are sometimes forced to use food airdrops.
One of our big challenges is the remoteness of the country, the difficulty of reaching people, the difficulty of those people to reach markets, to actually get access to food. So our logistics capacity in this country is one of the biggest in the World Food Programme across all 82 countries that we work in.
Farmers in South Sudan also have no access to financial services such as loans for agriculture. That means the main farming system is subsistence, which is negatively affected by natural factors such as drought. But experts say if lasting peace returns to the country, financial institutions will find a way of providing loans to farmers, and that would help improve food security situation.
Locust invasion in South Sudan creating more challenges for the people in the country. Now, of course, that's all we have for you in this news bulletin, but for more on this and other stories, you can also log on our website on iafrica.tv. But for now, once again, I am Amadou Kante, and many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Bye for now.
Thank you.